Welcome back to the Passion Project. My name is Alex Adams, and I'm very excited for our special guest, Ian Mendes, to come on and talk about his career in sports journalism and the Senators. He has worked for TSN, Sportsnet, and is now a senior writer at The Athletic and covers the Senators. How's it going, Ian?
Hey, Alex, listen, thanks so much for reaching out and having me. Having a great day. Hope you're doing well too.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah, thank you very much. And I just wanted to get started with your kind of career in sports journalism. And when did you first think you might pursue a career in sports journalism?
Probably back in high school, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think like a lot of kids, you grow up playing sport. I played hockey, I played baseball.
Hmm.
I played tennis, I played all these. I love sports, but at some point you get to, your teenage years, you realize that I'm not going to be able to make a living
Yeah.
out of any of these sports, and so you start to think about, well, what's the next best thing to being an athlete would be covering athletes or talking about athletes or and I was a kid who grew up watching Hockey Night in Canada and
Hmm.
Major League Baseball and all these things. And so you don't realize it, but you, as much as you fall in love with uh, the game and the athletes, you end up falling in love with broadcasting, right? And
Hmm.
and the media side of things, and you don't even realize that that's what's happening because you're just consuming it. And
Yeah.
I probably around grade 9 or 10 started to think like, wow, I would love to kind of pursue this. So yeah, that's probably when the seed was first planted in high
Hmm.
school.
And did you kind of start kind of writing and kind of doing local games when you were in high school, kind of like for the local high school football team, or was it kind of more after you graduated high school?
Yeah, it like I left high school. I grew up in Vancouver
Okay.
and was I'm one of the rare people that left Vancouver to come to Ottawa.
Yeah.
People usually do the other way because it's
It's
probably a
beautiful.
lot nicer out there, but I don't regret it because I love Ottawa. And
Yeah.
but I wrote for the school newspaper in high
Mhm.
school, but it was never I don't think I wrote very much about. I wrote a little bit about sports, but it was really when I came to Carleton, did
Mhm.
the journalism program, and kind of got immersed into the nuances of being a reporter that really got me into
Mhm.
covering sports per se.
And I know that like I did a bit of digging and I saw that after you graduated, you worked at the Ottawa Lynx and it says in PR. And it also I found something that said that you worked as a mascot. And I just kind of wanted to know what that experience was like kind of after graduating journalism and kind of going into kind of the field. And also can we have any funny mascot stories?
Yeah, of course. Well, is there anything other than funny mascot stories?
Yeah.
There's no serious mascot stories, is
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, like I love the journalism program at Carleton, and I would direct any, young student that
My
is.
dad actually worked there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's I would direct any young student that has aspirations for getting into this field. I would direct them to Carleton because I just think it was a
Hmm.
phenomenal program that kind of got me ready for the working world. But when I graduated, yeah, the first job opportunity I really had that was presented to me was to be a media relations assistant with the Ottawa Lynx baseball team, the old AAA team here.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I was, boy, I think my salary was $400 a week. I think, or it might have been like whatever it was. It was,
Yeah.
it wasn't a huge salary, but it was a foot in the door. And the thing is, when you start working for a minor league baseball team and you are working on kind of in an essentially an entry level position, you got to do everything. You got to wear 5 or 6 different hats. So, I
Hmm.
was helping to write press releases and I was helping to coordinate interviews, but I was also, when it was when it would start to rain, they needed 10 or 12 people to come and run and pull the tarp out over the field. You would do that. You
Wow.
would you would do all these things that weren't really in your job description, and one of them ended up being uh we need a fill-in mascot a couple of
Yeah.
times. So I did it. The one time that really sticks out to me though was the Santa Claus parade in Ottawa, which if people grew up in Ottawa, you know that the Santa Claus parade, I think, just runs up Bank Street.
Yeah.
Or at least it used to back in the day. This whole COVID thing, I don't know if the
Yeah.
Santa Claus parade is still going or whatever, but it ran from City Hall, which is at Laurier and Elgin, essentially, and it would come up Laurier, then you come south on Bank all the way to Lansdowne Park. And
Hmm.
I was told, look, the guy that usually does the mascot, Lenny the Lynx was his name, was the mascot's name. The guy couldn't do the Santa Claus parade. And they're like, look, we really need the visibility for the baseball team in the wintertime. We need somebody to do it. And so I was kind of the old voluntold, hey,
Mhm.
guy on the bottom of the totem pole, you're gonna do this. And I did it on the condition of thinking that I was told that there would be a fire truck. And I think it was from Gloucester or Orleans. I just remember it
Right.
was for the East End. And they said to me, just go to City Hall, put on the mascot costume, and wait for this fire truck.
Yeah.
You jump on the back of the fire truck, you get to wave to people, and you're good to go. Well, I get there, I get to City Hall, put on the big cartoon cat head, waiting for the fire truck, waiting. It doesn't show up. This fire truck that I'm supposed to ride on never shows up. So they basically tell me, okay, well, you're going to walk. I walked all the way from City Hall to Lansdowne,
Oh
and which
my.
would no, but wouldn't be a huge deal because it's not that. It's probably 3 kilometers,
Yeah.
whatever it is. That's not a huge deal. The problem was twofold. One, you're wearing a mascot head, mascot costume. That's not great. The second part was I wore the mascot shoes, which were basically just they're like decorative shoes. They weren't even meant to be worn around to like run around. But I was like, I'm going to be riding on a fire truck. What do I need
Yeah.
comfortable shoes for? So I had to walk, 3 kilometers, and it was like I always told people, imagine putting your feet into empty Kleenex boxes and then walking around. That would be the same support I got from these mascot shoes. So it was certainly memorable because I remember walking up Bank Street and I'm wearing this big
Mhm.
mask cat head and I'm waving to kids. I'm like, hey, but under my breath, I'm muttering like, this is an effing joke or get me out of here or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're waving to the kids. So it was there was the kind of the one time I remember being the
To do it
being
all.
the yeah
Yeah.
yeah
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Just to kind of transition from kind of your time with the Lynx, how did you kind of make that jump from PR with the Lynx to Sportsnet?
So, it's a funny story. So when I was working with the Lynx, um, I ended up my boss left the Lynx to go join the Ottawa Senators,
Okay.
and he joined the Senators, and then a couple of a year later there was an opening at the Senators, and he brought me over because he had worked with me. Unfortunately, I never got to be Spartacat though. When I ended up working with the Senators, I never got the chance to be
Yeah,
Spartacat, but
he
I moved over there, and it was a fantastic job. I loved doing media relations and working with the players, and yeah, that
it,
was a great period of my life.
yeah.
Um, but I still always had this thing in the back of my mind that I think I want to be a reporter. And
Mhm.
so I'll give the Senators some credit that when I was working in the PR department for the Ottawa Senators in the summertime, they let me still volunteer at Rogers Television in Ottawa.
Just say that again. So you went from PR at the Lynx to PR at the Senators, is that correct?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, okay, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I spent a season and a bit, working in media relations with the Senators, and I loved it. But like I said, I think I always wanted to do
Mhm.
reporting and journalism. So the Senators allowed me to basically, in the summertime, work on Ottawa Lynx broadcasts on Rogers TV.
Wow.
So I got to work, a lot of baseball games, and so I got my lucky break is that one day we were broadcasting a game. It was the Ottawa Lynx against, I think it was Syracuse, and at the
Mhm.
time Syracuse was the minor league affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Oh,
Okay,
okay. Mhm.
so because Ottawa was playing the Blue Jays affiliate, the Rogers TV network
Mhm.
decided to air that game all across Ontario. So the
Wow.
anywhere that Rogers had
Mm.
an affiliate in Ontario, they played our game live. Okay, which I don't know how many people were watching random community television,
But
all
still,
over Ontario. But here's where I got my break. It just so happened that day that Jerry Dobson, who worked for Sportsnet, he was a longtime soccer guy for people
yeah.
who
Oh,
don't
yeah,
know
I know who that is. Yeah.
Jerry Dobson. Well, Jerry used to actually run the news department at Sportsnet in the early 2000s. on this random Saturday, he happens to be flipping around his TV, stops on his, and I think he was in Mississauga or whatever, Peel region, whatever, and stops on this Lynx broadcast. And I come up on the screen for 30 seconds, minute, whatever. And he notices me and he's like, oh, it's funny. He's like, we need to get a reporter in Ottawa. And out of the blue, I got a phone call from him,
Wow.
a week later. He's like, hey, I noticed that you were doing, you have any interest in, and this was like, it was almost like out of a movie, these things that you're like, hey, are you interested in your dream job? I'm like, yeah. So, Sportsnet brought me down to Toronto for, like kind of screen test, on air test. Did some interviews with them, and yeah, they offered me the job, and I loved it. But that's how I got my break, was a complete accident or fluke or whatever you want to call it. I got super lucky there.
And just kind of going forward, like I get, you've now been in the industry, what, 20 years or so. And I know you've covered World Series, Stanley Cups, and just kind of what are your kind of more memorable like memories or moments that you've been in? I also know you're a Cowboys fan.
Oh.
I was just wondering if you ever kind of went to Sportsnet, TSN, whoever, and said, I need to cover a Dallas Cowboys game.
Okay, so now listen, this podcast was going great until you brought up the Cowboys because, man, I'm already starting to get,
it's that
not nervous, but like it's that time of year where you just know they're going to finish 9-7. They're going to squeak into the playoffs. They're going to lose the first round. But anyway, that the wild card weekend. But that's another story for that. I did. You know what? I did actually get to cover one. I covered one Dallas Cowboys game. I didn't even ask for it. I didn't ask for it.
Okay.
But it was during, I think it would have been September of 2012. So
Okay.
I was constantly serving as Sportsnet's main reporter during the lockout of 2012 into 2013. So all of, so when training camps and stuff were supposed to open in the fall of 2012, there was a lockout.
Yeah.
But there was all these negotiations going on in
I remember,
New York. So they would send me all the time. They're like, hey, you go cover the negotiations. Well, I believe the one year that they sent me down, or the 1 week they sent me down in early September, it coincided with the NFL's opening weekend, and Dallas played at the Giants on it was a Thursday night to open the season. Boy, I don't know why the Giants were, maybe the Giant, you know what? I think that was the second after the Giants won their second Super Bowl.
Yeah, that sounds
not the Tyree catch one, because that was, I think, 2008.
The second one against
the second one where they beat the Pats again.
Yeah.
It was like Mario Manningham and all that. Anyway, the Giants hosted the Thursday night season opener, and I was in New York, and Sportsnet said to me, listen, we're going to send you to we go cover the game at the Meadowlands. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is unbelievable. So I got to go cover the game. Dallas won. I don't even remember the details of that. I just remember being in the locker. I'm pretty sure Dallas won that game. But anyway, I remember being in the locker room, being in the scrum with Jason Witten.
Oh yeah.
Being in the scrum, and then the thing I'll never forget is that Jerry Jones just comes into the locker room during the media session, just stands in the middle, and then whoosh, all the report. And I was like, wow, I guess I got it.
Yeah.
He just starts talking. And people are asking him questions, and it's just the most bizarre thing, because I think, and I mean, listen, technically he is always been the general manager of the team too.
Yeah.
But even then, like, in what other scenario would you see a general manager just roll in and just start taking questions? So that is the one game that I got to cover the Cowboys, and it was opening night in 2012. I feel like they won the game. I don't remember the details of it, but it was pretty cool.
And was there kind of other kind of non-Cowboys moments kind of stick in your mind, I guess, just to kind of transition to that?
Yeah. Listen, like it's funny. Like I grew up a huge baseball fan, so being able to cover the World Series, I think I did 4 or 5 World Series. Like that was amazing to me, because I grew up in the -- when the Blue Jays were dominant and won a couple of World Series, and I was a big Expos fan as a kid, so getting a chance to cover the World Series was huge. Stanley Cup Finals were amazing. The one I always think about for Stanley Cup is, I wish Ottawa had won a Stanley Cup, and you know, I I think about 2007. I think the electricity in the city was
Crazy.
off the hook, and it was great. But like for me, probably the things that I love most, I got to cover. Probably, if you're asking me, the singular best moment I ever covered was the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver,
Yeah.
because I grew up in Vancouver, so to be able to go essentially quote unquote home to
Mhm.
cover the Olympics, but to be in the building when Crosby scored that goal.
Wow.
I remember walking out of the arena that day thinking, that's it for me in terms of I'll never cover anything like that again, because we win a gold medal on home ice, and the greatest player of his generation scores
Yeah.
the winning goal. When will the stars ever align for that again? Like
Yeah.
maybe we win another Olympic gold, and
At
maybe we have
home,
the best player do it, but to do it on home ice,
ice. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that would ever happen. So that was great, and I also got to cover. I'm not a soccer fan at all. Like I didn't
Okay.
like I didn't grow up
Okay.
watching soccer. I played a little bit, but I didn't love
Mhm.
the game. I covered the World Cup in Germany in
Yeah.
2006, and that was about as amazing of a spectacle for 6 weeks that I've ever been a part of. And so,
Really? Okay.
I would put that at the top of the list. That to be able
Yeah.
to go to virtually every city in Germany and cover,
Hmm.
German soccer and watch these matches, Italy and
Hmm.
and France and all these
Huge
amazing,
nations. Yeah.
all these amazing, matches, semifinals, finals, all that. Yeah, it was about as great of sporting event that I've ever covered.
Okay, great. I guess I was going to ask kind of what do you love most about being a sports journalist? I guess you've kind of mentioned kind of going to those events, but is there anything else that kind of like what like yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I think the thing is, like, I feel like um most days I don't even work, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like if people ask me what's the best thing about the job, it's that I don't feel like I'm working, because honestly, like if I wasn't working or in this field, I would probably still be paying attention to it, following it.
Mhm.
Uh, so when you are able to take your passion in life and turn it into a career, it's probably the best thing you can do. And I just happen to be a sports fan, but I'm super happy when I hear that people who are into music or art or
Yeah.
one of those things are able to turn those passions into careers. That's the best thing. And so when I talk about the best things, like for me as a reporter, that's it for me. Like
Mhm.
I rarely, I think there's especially when you live in a place like Ottawa, where it's a predominantly government town. There's a lot of people who wake up every Monday morning
And kind
with
of
a little bit of a sense of dread of, like,
yeah.
here we go again, another week at the rat race, or another week where I don't feel super engaged or motivated
Mhm.
or inspired to work. And but that's the reality for, I feel like 90% of people is that they don't necessarily love their job, right? Or
Yeah.
a job is more of like a means to an end, to get a
Mm.
paycheck and to live your life. But when you get to be one of that, kind of 10% that loves their job, or turns their hobby into a passion, it's the best. I think the best aspect of my job for sure.
Well, that's kind of what my podcast is trying to talk to people about their passions in life. So that's you said it's very eloquently, so perfect. I just wanted to kind of transition into your new job at the Athletic, and kind of how's it been kind of working there, and kind of the transition. I know you're at TSN and doing a lot of radio, so kind of what that transition's been like.
Yeah, listen, and like I'll give you the kind of the quick version of how and why I transitioned some jobs. Like,
Sure, yeah,
as much as
perfect.
we just talked about how much I loved covering, World Cup, World Series, Olympics, all these great moments. One of the things that I don't think enough young reporters understand is there's a lot of nights on the road and a lot
Yeah.
of travel, and it's really hard to do a work-life balance if you want to have a family. Look, if you want to be a single person and you don't have a partner, or you don't have, have aspirations for family, this is a great job, like fantastic job. But if you do want those things, if you do want to have a
Hmm.
partner, a spouse, or you want to have kids, it's really hard. Uh,
Hmm.
it's a tightrope walk. to
Yeah.
do it. And I just got to the point with Sportsnet where I was, on the road 125, 150 days a year. Out of 365 days, that's 35, 40% of the year that you're on the road. And it's really hard to be a parent. So I made the decision kind of in the summer of 2013 that it was time for me to get off the ride. It's almost like you're on an OC Transpo bus and you're like, you got to pull the little cord. You're like, I got to get off this. I got
Yeah.
to get off this bus
Yeah.
because it's just my kids at the time, our kids were 9 and 6,
Okay.
and I felt like I was missing a lot of things. I was missing birthdays. I was missing, performances or concerts or, different things that they were involved in. I couldn't take them to activities. And I felt like, your kids are only young one time. And
Yeah.
so I made the decision, listen, I'm going to leave. And I know there was a lot of people who are like, hey, dude, you're leaving a network television job to go work for an AM radio station. And I don't regret it at all. In hindsight, it was the best thing I did at the time was leaving because, I got a more regular schedule. I never traveled. I think I took two trips with TSN 1200, and they were, to the draft and, kind of back, within 4 days or whatever. It wasn't, after spending 150 days a year on the road, I think in my 7 years at TSN 1200, I think I spent a grand total of 10 days away,
Wow.
maybe
Wow. Wow.
like if that. So it was huge. And I got a normal schedule. I did the afternoon drive home show, so 2 to 6 every day. I would spend my mornings researching and prepping the show, but every day at 6:05 when I walked out of that studio, I was free and clear. There was
Yeah.
no phone call coming from an assignment desk saying, hey, you need to go to Pittsburgh because Sidney Crosby's got a concussion, or you got to, there was not. It was very freeing and liberating. And so those 7 years at TSN 1200 gave me back my my family life. I got to coach my youngest daughter in ringette. I
Mhm.
got to do a whole bunch of things that never would have been able. I never would have been able to do these things had I had my old job. So that was great. But then at the end of my time at TSN 1200, I just felt like, I don't know. And maybe this is what happens to people in their 40s is they start to feel like, and I'll use a golf analogy here. I
Okay.
think when you get, and I'm 45 now, so I feel like I just finished the front 9
Yeah.
of my career, and now I'm on the back 9. And I think when you make that turn, and you usually do that in your early 40s, you start to ask yourself, like, what are the things that I want to accomplish? And
Mhm.
I think one of the things I had left was, listen, I did television, I loved it. I did radio, I loved it. Could I be a writer? Could I pull off the trifecta of doing all these things? And
Mhm.
I said, I want to give it a shot. So that was
Mhm.
sort of the catalyst to kind of lead me down the road of doing the Athletic. It is an amazing company.
Mhm.
It's an upstart kind of young company, although now I think we're 6 years old, really.
Yeah.
And
And
I
New
think
York Times and everything.
New
Yeah.
York Times has purchased us, and it's it all seems to be going in the right direction. And I think it's a very loyal subscriber base. And I think
Mhm.
listen, when people pay, and whether people got on for $1 a month or $6 a month, whatever it is,
Yeah.
people are more invested, I think, in the product when they're paying a few dollars a month for it. And then you also, I think, as a writer, as a content creator, producer of this stuff, you feel an obligation of, man, like, some guy or girl is paying $5 a month. I can't just take 3, 4, 5 weeks off without producing anything. So
Yeah.
you try it. I just took 2 weeks off, but that was the first time in my 2 years at the Athletic I even took
Yeah.
a significant amount of time off.
Wow.
But you just feel a great sense of a connection to the audience, but also an obligation and a feeling of, hey, you're paying for this. I got to be accountable to you and that type of thing. So it's great though. I love it. I think it was the best thing I ever did
Mhm.
was making that switch. And I would encourage a lot of people, like when you get to that point in your career, and like I said, a lot of times it happens in your 40s, but it might happen earlier for people or even later. But like to take that leap of faith and take
Mhm.
the shot, like shoot your shot, so to speak, because
Yeah.
I think you're not going to end up regretting it.
Well, that was Great answer. I don't really know what else to ask about that, but I guess just going about kind of the stories you've been writing at the Athletic. Obviously the Hockey Canada story, come out from Rick Westhead and you guys at the Athletic as well. And I just kind of wanted to know kind of what that process was for you guys to write a story so serious. And obviously, normally you guys aren't writing maybe like it's on ice stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know kind of what the process was like to write a piece like that.
Yeah. Listen, it's hard to do because look, I've spent 20 years being for the most part, people have come to me and they're like, oh, that guy's, especially when I was on the radio, most of the content was kind of lighter and more
Yeah.
fun. And even when I was in Sportsnet, we did lights and fun features. But again, at some point, I think if you want to really truly become a writer, um, you got to roll up your sleeves and get into some
Mhm.
uncomfortable stories. And there are some uncomfortable stories in the hockey world right now.
Yeah.
And you bring up the name of Rick Westhead. Rick deserves
Oh,
so much credit. Like I think, like, I don't think there's a more important media person in hockey than Rick Westhead. And
yeah.
you're going to see people's, you always every year you see these power rankings of the most powerful, people in sports and hockey. What Rick should be number one because nobody has influence from the Kyle Beach story, which happened about a year ago at this time, to the Hockey Canada stuff, and everything in between. Rick has been a leader, and I truly have felt a sense of a calling that we can't be leaving this guy on an island.
Yeah.
Like, there's an obligation from all of us. If we're in hockey media, we got to cover these stories. It shouldn't be. And I'm really fortunate. I have an unbelievable pair of
Katie
colleagues and
Strang,
Katie Strang and
Robson.
like Katie. I put Katie right next to Rick in terms
Mhm.
of doing important, uncomfortable work. Nobody wants to do these stories, but these stories need to be told.
Yeah.
And Katie does a fantastic job, just like Rick does. Dan Robson, who I've been able to work with, is probably, I think Dan is the best feature writer in
Mhm.
sports, and
Yeah.
he is so good. His stuff is like, yeah, I read his stuff and I'm like, man, that's a writer. Like that's what I aspire to be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to be able to be teamed up with them was great. We first teamed up for the kind of deep dive on the culture of the Ottawa Senators. That's how the three of us got put together. Was
I was gonna
yeah,
ask you about that after. That
yeah,
was my following. So I guess if I like you kind of answered it, but I just kind of would like to ask it before we go to the Sens. Like, what do you feel the role of sports journalists now? Like you kind of answered it, but I maybe just
yeah.
more detailed question of like their role to kind of delve into these stories because I think that's been such a pertinent kind of question recently for a lot of well, hockey writers especially.
Yeah. Listen, I think we're at a crossroads in the industry, and I'm not saying that there isn't an appetite for information about trades and rumors, and there is. I'm not criticizing the
Hmm.
reporters who break those stories because they're important stories. They're to the audience. People want to know
Yeah.
if Ottawa is going to sign Claude Giroux or trade for DeBrincat, or they try to sign a top four defenseman or trade for. I get that's a huge appetite,
Yeah.
but if there are kind of nefarious or underhanded or toxic or abusive things that are simultaneously happening, it's our obligation to also shine a light on that. And I think that's where we've all made a mistake in the last 10 or 15 years. Is I think we've been so focused on um the
The in,
trades and
yeah,
the insider stuff, and again, it's important. Like, don't get me wrong, that stuff is important, but these stories of abusive, toxic workplaces and environments, whether it's what has happened with the Ottawa Senators in the last
yeah.
5 or 6 years, whether it's the Chicago Blackhawks, whether it's Hockey Canada, all of these things as reporters and journalists, this happened on our watches. So
Hmm.
we should feel some sense of ownership and say, that happened on my watch. You know, did
Is
I hear about these things and not report them? And that's a great question. If I didn't hear about them, what does that say about me as a reporter? Look,
mhm.
there's a lot. Like, I don't want to get into this finger pointing thing. I
No,
think
no,
what's
no.
more important is everybody who's a reporter, a broadcaster, journalist simply needs to look in the mirror. That's it. That's it. Look in the mirror. Ask yourself, are you truly telling the story, or are you telling the story that they want you to tell?
Hmm.
And I think in the last year, we've really learned that there's a lot of things happening underneath the hood in the hockey world that need to be exposed. And I've always given the analogy to, okay, I
Okay.
think everybody that comes out of um, journalism school, or you're a reporter, we all get a flashlight, okay, and the world can be a very dark place,
Hmm.
but our job is to shine that light in dark places. And sometimes we're too preoccupied shining that light on trade rumors and whatever. But on the other side of the room, there's abuse happening, and there's things, take your light. We all of us that have a platform on Twitter and on our various media outlets that we work for, we all have a platform. At the end of the day, 20, 30, 40 years from now, when you look back, are you going to be proud of what you use your flashlight for? I guess is my
Hmm.
my point. And I'm willing to admit that I don't think that I shine my flashlight in the right place.
Hmm.
But that's not going to be the case anymore. I'm going to make sure I shine it in a place that tells the story and tells the truth. And if it makes people uncomfortable, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
If you're uncomfortable with the light being shined on you, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And we got to get more. We need more. I say this all the time. We need more Katie Strangs and Rick Westheads. We
Hmm.
do. And we have enough insiders. We have
Hmm.
enough insiders. We need some outsiders.
Yeah. No,
That's basically it.
definitely. I guess I just want to have a little bit on Eugene Melnyk before we kind of talk
Yeah.
sense. That's okay. Um, I just because like obviously he hasn't been the most kind of beloved in the fan base in the past years, and like if you read your article about him, you definitely get that and the complicated man he was. I just wanted to know because it came out quite after or like quite recently after his death kind of was that piece coming like what were you working on that for a long time? Did it kind of was it happens chance? Because I know people asked about that at the time. And just what was it like writing about Eugene, who you kind of had a close not a close relationship, but a
Yeah.
relationship with?
Yeah. Listen, I did at one point have a very good professional working
I know you
relationship.
didn't at one point too,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And we would we were, on a kind of texting basis, or, emailing or phone call. When I had a question about something, he would answer me all the time up until about 2017, 2018. I think we had a really good relationship, and then it fell apart. And I felt like in and around 20, and the comments he made at the outdoor game, I know never
Yeah.
sat well with people.
No.
uh, but right around that time, 2018, 2019, you started to hear some stories about the toxicity at the office, and then you started to see, like, wow, like, Daniel Alfredson left multiple times, and they didn't create the environment that Carlson and Stone and whoever else you want to add to that list, they all left, and and nobody was doing the story. Nobody was like, kind of, everyone was like, oh, I know what's going on, but I don't want to say what's going on. Well,
Mm.
somebody's got to say what's going on. And there was a connective tissue there, but with all of those departures and all of the different presidents and CEOs that would come in, and
Good fire.
players that would leave, and there was instability, and it really, I think, came from the very top of the organization. And so when I joined the Athletic, one of the things that we talked about was somebody needs to do a deep dive onto what the bleep is going on behind closed doors.
Mhm.
So, Katie and Dan and myself spent months, kind of, we spoke to so many people, dozens and dozens and
Mhm.
dozens and dozens of people, current employees, current players, former players, coaches, all these things. And, a story started to develop of a very bizarre workplace, and at times a workplace that included, kind of homophobic elements and misogynistic elements, and, borderline, I thought, borderline racist elements, all of these things that you thought to yourself, this ain't right.
Yeah.
And so, we started to pursue this, and it's a hard thing to do, to pursue a story like that, because um, you know that once you start kind of kicking the tires on this, people are going to start talking to each other, and then it's going to go up the food chain. And then guess what? He's going to know that you're doing this story, which he did. And
Yeah.
unfortunately for him, his health wasn't in a great place. And would I have liked this story to have come out before he passed away? Absolutely. Like, that was our intention, our goal, but we couldn't. We wanted to make sure that anything we put out and produce was airtight, quadruple, quintuple sourced, or whatever it is. Like, we never put any anecdote. If you go back and read that story, there's not
No.
a single anecdote in that article that wasn't sourced by multiple people. Like, we said to ourselves, we're not taking one piece of somebody said, well, he said this, and then we're not going with that. Like, unless we have, smoking gun evidence, or, emails, or, voice recordings, or whatever it is, we're not going with it. So that takes time to put together. And then,
Yeah.
the timing of it was such that as we were getting to the finish line, unfortunately, that's when his, health was failing. And then we had a real debate, I think, about, like, after he passed away, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you just leave this? Do you not leave it? Do you wait 3 months? Do you wait 3 weeks? There's no handbook for this.
No.
And I am completely open to the criticism from people who say, and I think we waited 3 weeks and we published the story after he passed away. I'm open to the criticism. I'm here to take it. And I'm okay with that. I understand. I want people to know I understand the criticism. Like, I'm not one of these people that says that doesn't understand that the timing of it may not have sat well with people. I get it. I'm a human being. I understand that. But I also felt like the truth needed to be told. And I wish we were able to tell that story earlier. We weren't. We simply weren't able to get it journalistically to a place that we felt comfortable publishing in December or January. As much as we thought we were close, we weren't. But we published it, and
I mean,
I feel an obligation to tell the truth. And the one of the things that I really appreciated, I had a lot of people come out to me, and I think Katie and Dan did too. People who reached out to us and said, just so you know, you guys got the story right. You got it right. And that's what matters to me. It would have crushed me if we put that story out and we even had one element wrong or one thing wrong. That's not the way we want to do things. So, at the end of the day, I hope that this leads to a better era for the Ottawa Senators, that we can all move forward. I'm happy to move forward. I'm not interested in drudging up the past, but I do think it's important
to know it,
to know the history. And it's the old, unless you know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I think it's really important that we show everybody kind of what was going on under the hood here, and make damn sure that this doesn't happen again. That we can't let an office culture get so toxic that it literally emanates throughout the organization and impacts the on-ice product, the off-ice product. All of it got impacted by a level of toxicity that I don't think belongs in a workplace in the year 2022.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And it's a great piece, and you should check it out if you can. I just want to now transition to, I guess, the on-ice part of the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
I know, reading some of your stuff and listening to you, that before kind of the offseason started, you were kind of, this is the make it or break it almost of Pierre Dorion as the GM as the Ottawa Senators. I'd say most Sens fans are pretty happy with what happened this summer. But I just wanted to know, with the Giroux signing, DeBrincat, the other trades that kind of, I just wanted to know what you kind of thought about the offseason, and maybe just add on, what do you think the most impactful addition was this summer?
Yeah, listen, I think, and we did, Dom Lucian, who does our analytics, a lot of our analytics type of writing at The Athletic, put out a front office confidence poll where fans can kind of weigh in on how much confidence they have in the direction of their team. Ottawa made one of the biggest leaps in confidence, where I think year over year, it was like a 90% difference in, like, the swing of the confidence level. And it's great. I think Ottawa fans are tired of being pessimistic, tired of being fragile, tired. Yeah. And I, like for people who think that I I relish in that. I don't like what I want to see this friend like. I want people to understand. I want to see this team win a Stanley Cup. Like I think most beat writers who cover their team, whatever the sport is, you want to cover at least one championship season. Like like just from start to finish, just to experience it. Like for the readers or your audience, you just want that, right? So that's what I want, and I feel like they've taken a quantum leap forward towards that. I think, to me, if you're asking me what the move of the summer, it was Giroux, because I don't think a year ago at this time Claude Giroux signs in Ottawa. There's no
Okay.
way, no way,
Okay.
no way. I think the listen. We just talked about the toxicity at the like. I don't think the situation was right for him to come in, but now it feels like the nose of the ship is pointed in the right direction. And I think what Claude Giroux did by signing here was it was the biggest endorsement for the direction of the franchise, bigger than any marketing plan or anything you can come up with.
Hmm.
Um, Claude Giroux saying, "Yeah, I'll sign on the dotted line." Like this doesn't happen in Ottawa. Like
Yeah.
we've for years have talked about, can we get this guy to sign? And I'm like, guys, this guy's not signing here. Like, stop it with your free agent thing. And even 6 months ago, if you told me, what about Claude Giroux coming home? I'm like, Claude Giroux's not coming home.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden in the spring, you started to hear that, Claude would consider it. And then, here we are. So I think that was huge. I think him signing on the dotted line is, like I said, a huge endorsement for the direction of this program. Um, a big reason why, like, I'm excited for opening night. I think
Yeah,
opening night
I'm
is
gonna
going to
be
be like
there.
a, yeah, and it's going to feel like a rebirth of a franchise. And I can't wait to hear the ovation on opening night, for Claude to come home, for Alex DeBrincat, for Brady Kachuk. It feels like a combination of post COVID. Even last year when we
Yeah.
opened up the arena, there were still some people who were hesitant. And listen, I'm very mindful that people might be hesitant
Mhm.
to come back to the arena again, but it's going to feel like a rebirth here coming up for Ottawa fans this season.
Sorry, I just got a call. My bad. I'll
Nope.
just pause it 1 second. And just to kind of go back on that, you were mentioning Claude Giroux. Do you think that kind of has a trickle down effect, kind of maybe in terms of like guys like DeBrincat signing or kind of bringing other guys through the door? There's also rumors of a top four defenseman, and I'm kind of curious what you kind of think or even know about that. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I think Giroux coming back is huge. Like, yeah, I think it does entice other people to come. The only problem is now you're going to get into can we fit everybody in under the cap
yeah,
scenario, which is a good problem now. Like we're so conditioned in Ottawa to having these conversations of can they reach the cap floor. We've never stopped to consider the opposite problem, which is can you fit everybody in under the cap. I think Giroux helps for sure. Like again, like I said, it's an endorsement of the program when a player who is, you know, Claude's got some Hall of Fame credentials. I'm not saying he's a Hall of Fame player. I'm saying he's got at the end of his career, he's going to have some numbers that stack up pretty well
mhm,
against some other Hall of Famers. And he's probably the type of guy that's going to end up having his jersey retired in Philly because played 1,000 games, captain there, face of the franchise for a decade. So you get that guy to sign on the dotted line, you're going to get other people to come in. And the question is now, can they get that top four defenseman? And to me, I think they're a bubble playoff team right now. I think the East is so strong that that's like if they were in the Pacific Division, I
yeah,
think they're a playoff team.
yeah,
But they're not. They're in a very tough Atlantic Division. But if you get a legit top four defenseman by the time the season starts, I think you can legitimately have a conversation to say they are a playoff team. They're a
mhm,
playoff team.
mhm,
I'm not quite there yet. I don't want to set the bar too high because I think there needs to be a little bit of excitement and enthusiasm, I just want this season to be a fun one. I hope for
yeah,
Ottawa fans that they can kind of fall back in love with their team.
mhm,
So yeah, I think Giroux absolutely helps to create that environment and then possibly help the roster as well.
mhm. And like, I just want to ask about like, because there's been a lot about Jacob Chikrin and like the big ask. Like, I guess this is more kind of a big picture. Do you think kind of giving up a lot of assets for that kind of player is kind of the right thing to do right now for the Sens? Like, I know all the fan base is super excited, but is that too much win now mode, or what are your kind of thoughts?
Look, I'm okay with win now mode because we've been sitting on, wait till next year for like 5 years in a row. Like 4 or 5 years in a row, we've been thinking, maybe next year they'll compete. No, at some point next year arrives, and this is that next year. I'm okay with them. Like, I still think they've got some decent prospects they could package up. Like, whether it's Jacob Bernard Docker, Lassie Thompson, Igor Sokolov, Tyler
Jordan,
Clevin,
yeah.
all these, you could package up some of those guys. Where I get concerned is, okay, if Arizona is really asking for 2 first-round picks for Jake Chikrin, I like, to me, 2 first-round picks is like you're getting back a stud, lock it in, yeah, and Jacob Chikrin is a very good defenseman. I think he's a top 4, lock it in, no questions asked. But 2 first-round picks, a big asking price, especially when a lottery ticket to Connor Bedard might be involved. And I would hate for Ottawa, like, I would lottery protect that pick. Like, I would say, okay, if you're asking for my 2023, fine, you can have it. It's top 3 protected, it's top 5 protected, whatever it is. That would be a huge thing for me, because I don't want to take the risk of losing out on a generational player. Like, imagine if Ottawa misses the playoffs and they finish, whatever,
It'd be
20th overall, and then they've given up. And we've been down this road before where, it was, the Matt Duchene trade's a great example of, you give up your first round pick, you don't lottery protect it because you think, wow, there's no way we're going to finish at the bottom of the standings. And then you do. And then, luckily for Ottawa, that was the year that, they took Brady Tkachuk, which was good. They punted it to the next year. But they had another bad year. And it could have been Jack Hughes. Like, we could have been having a conversation where they could have had Jack Hughes. Now, Bowen Byram would have been a really nice fit here too. But, you don't want to go down that road again. So, but yeah, I would be okay. Like, if you're telling me the asking price for Jake Chikrin is a first round pick, maybe another asset of that nature, whatever. Yeah, sure. But 2 first round picks plus another prospect, that seems a little bit steep for me.
Yeah. And I like, just to kind of go off that, like, and this is kind of my personal opinion. For me, because they got the extra second round pick for Connor Brown. And I was just wondering if it was like a first and 2 seconds and a prospect or something like that, does that seem much more palatable and for you?
Yeah, like, the Connor Brown trade, it confused me because I thought when they traded him and they got a second round pick, I thought, okay, within 5 hours or something, we're going to hear that they flipped that second round pick for something. And you'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But then it didn't happen. And it was like, why were you rushing to trade a guy in Connor Brown who I think, if they had, look, and I know there's cap considerations, but even if you didn't think he fit into your team a year from now, wouldn't you love to have Connor Brown all year and then either flip him out of the deadline or you keep him as a quote unquote own rental? Like, I don't know. So, seeing a second round pick come back was a little bit of a head scratcher, but I'm willing to wait and see what opening night's roster looks like. And if they, if they're able to use that cap space that they would have used on Brown on a Jacob Chikrin's cap hit isn't much more than Connor Brown's. It's like $1 million more, 900,000. So I'm willing to wait on that. But yeah, I think, to me, if you're able to use some of these, like, they still have lots of, picks or whatever, but it is time to probably replenish. Like, you want to be careful. You don't want to just give away first round picks, because now, like, basically all of their NHL kind of high end prospects, they've all graduated, all of them. Like, the guys that are left are, guys that could project to be NHL players, but they're not locking in. Like, right, like Sokolovs and Thompsons and Tyler Boucher's, like, they're all legitimate prospects, but they're not the blue chip era of Sanderson and Stutzla and Kachuk and all. That era is done. Like, they're all there. So, you want to be reluctant in just giving away pick after pick.
And just kind of moving, like, going to training camp, like, they still haven't signed Formenton and Brandstrom. And I mean, the Formenton obviously could be one reason for that. But I just was wondering if you have any indication if those are kind of either dealt or signed before training camp, like you presume. But Like, do you know anything about those guys?
No, I don't. And you know what? And listen, I understand that there's a lot of questions about Formanton, and for us, we've tried to do some reporting around the Hockey Canada story, and we'll see what happens there. Like I'm very reluctant. People are always asking me like, how come you're not talking about this, or why are you like
Don't
I
know.
hope people understand the legalities involved here, that you like this isn't the Wild West internet where I can just use people's names in certain
No.
things unless you're 100% certain of what's going to happen. So we'll wait and see what transpires there. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, and we're getting closer and closer to a potential, we're getting closer to training camp, right? So
Mhm.
if he's not signed, he won't have to come to training camp. And but if he comes to training camp, boy, we're gonna have some questions for him
Yeah.
about whether it's the Hockey
And
Canada stuff,
Batherson, I
or
guess.
yeah, absolutely, anybody who was potentially involved there, we're gonna ask questions, and uh, we're gonna hopefully get some accountability there. But on Brandstrom, I think that's interesting too, because you wonder, if you trade for Jacob Chikrin, is Brandstrom a piece that goes back? And you know, I would consider myself an Eric Brandstrom truther in that I like him. I actually think he's like, and especially like if he's your third pairing defenseman, I think things are good. Like I think things are pretty good. Like if he's your third pairing guy, like I think he can play in this league. Uh I don't know about him on the power play. Like you
The
know,
shot.
productivity wise, he hasn't really done a ton, but now maybe there's going to be some nicer pieces on that second unit power play, whatever. Like I like him, and I would love to see him come back. Like you can get him on a 2-year deal at 2 million per, like kind of just, hey, let's see what you're able to do. I'd be all for it. I really think uh, he's a capable and competent defenseman. I know there's some people that think, oh, you can't win with Brandstrom or whatever. I think he can. I like him a lot. And I think he can move the puck. He just, may not have the numbers to show it, but I'm a big fan of his. So I would love to see him come back. And if he's on your third pair, like if your left side is some combination of Thomas Chabot, Jake Sanderson, and Eric Brandstrom, like to me, this is what you've been waiting for as an Ottawa fan.
Yeah.
You've been waiting
Yeah.
for the the multiple pairings that are solid, and it's the right side that's the issue here, because I think Zub is the only capable guy
Mhm.
right now, in my opinion. And we'll see how this plays out. But I'm a Brandstrom fan. I would love to see him sign, like I said, 2 times 2, see where he's at, and kind of go from there.
I guess my last kind of sense, or probably my last sense question, and it's pretty short, is just, do you have any idea if Zub is a long-term kind of, because like I think Sens fans want him, but there doesn't seem to be any kind of contract like there, I haven't heard anything, and he's been so good. I'm just curious what you, yeah.
Yeah, you look, and I think when Artem Zub signed and Dan Milstein's his agent, I think the first reason why they signed in Ottawa a couple of years ago was they were looking for, where's a place where the client could come in and play pretty much right away. Ottawa was thin, so they knew that was a place. And after that first year, which was the kind of the shortened
Yeah.
56 game
Yeah.
season, he signed a 2-year extension. And I know at the time there's a lot of Ottawa fans saying, you should have locked up Zoom for 5 years at that point, or 6 years, right? But I think it was Milstein's plan, take him to free agency.
Okay.
I think so. And you can't blame the player or
No.
the agent, because um, you, you start to look at the field and you think, if Artem Zub is smart, he plays out this year, plays it out. And if he's the guy that we think he is, he's going to set himself up for a really nice potential, 5x5 deal somewhere, or what like he can pick his spot, or he can be choosy. And I never begrudge a player. Like all the times people say, like, you should have locked this guy up. You don't know that what the player and the agent are thinking. And my guess on this one is they wanted to test unrestricted free agency as early as possible, because he's a little bit older, right? Like when he
It's like
came to the NHL, he was
26.
24, right? Or
Yeah.
24 turning 25 when he came to the NHL. So this is his first opportunity as a young pro, his year where he turns 27 to be a UFA. I don't begrudge him. If I'm Ottawa, though, yeah, I'm trying to sign him. I'm trying to sign him for a 5 or 6 year deal if I could, because I think he is the most steadying, calming influence they have on the right side of that defense. I'd love to see him paired with Jake Sanderson this year. Like I think if you want to put Sanderson in a position to succeed, I think you put him with Artem Zoop. And I would sign him, but boy, I think they're gonna have a hard time doing it before the season because I think Zub and his camp probably think our leverage is only going to get
Better.
better
And the
as
team
the
should be
season goes on.
better and like
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
I guess just kind of to end off, because you kind of mentioned you think the Sens are kind of a bubble team to make the playoffs, and obviously if they get Chikrin or someone like that, then they probably are more likely a playoff team. Is there one player that you're really excited to watch this year or intrigued about this year? And
I you know what I mean I guess there's a twofold answer. One would be Jake Sanderson, and you know I had a chance to go up to North Dakota to watch him play a weekend last year. Like the skating is phenomenal. Like the skating
wow, yeah.
is NHL caliber, world class, like unbelievable. So I'm excited for him. I know he's had some injury issues, but I truly think he can come in and do for Ottawa what Moritz Seider did for Detroit, which
Wow,
is come in and be a like a legitimate top four
wow.
ready to go defenseman. Like I think he's that good. I really do. And so if he can do what Moritz Seider did in Detroit and he's got more you know, support maybe than Seider did, it's gonna be a fun year. So he would be guy number one. Guy number two for me is Cam Talbot because
Oh, yeah.
goaltending for me has been a huge problem. In fact, I think DJ Smith has been kind of, you know, submarined by bad goaltending. And
Yeah.
whether it was his first year, second year, third year, every time he's tried to look for some stability in goal, he hasn't had it until Anton Forsberg really kind of came and gave him some stability last year. He hasn't had it. So I think if Cam Talbot can come in, like Forsberg has to play the way he did last year, and then Talbot comes in, you know, 35 years old, expiring deal. If he can come in and they can kind of get this 1-1A thing going, I do think that they could be a playoff team. If those, so to me, if Jake Sanderson and Cam Talbot kind of hit their ceiling of what they can do, I think this could be a playoff team.
Great. So I guess just to kind of end off, thank you so much for this. And I just wanted to know kind of going forward, is there anything you're working on or any pieces coming up that anyone should kind of keep their eyes or ears open for?
Yeah, like I mean, I'm pretty excited just for the start of the season, right? Like just the fact that we're you know, a couple of weeks away from training camp, and like I'm excited to do some stuff, like I said, around Jake Sanderson and in the rookie camp and all that stuff. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, to get some time with Claude Giroux.
I've seen he's been around all Ottawa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to get some time with him in the next week or so. And I'd love to do just a feature on, hey, Claude's coming home. What's his expectations? What, you know, what's the mindset? So that would be the one thing I'm excited to hopefully do, is to connect with Claude, because I think that's the story of the off season for Ottawa was landing him. And then yeah, like listen, we're gonna get right into, like, once we get past Labor Day, it's go time, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited. I'm excited to hopefully have a season in which the Ottawa Senators are no longer a tire fire, you know, on and off the ice. So I'm excited for just to cover a normal hockey team for a change.
Yeah,
It's gonna be fun. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Sorry, I just lost my voice. And yeah, so thank you so much, Ian. And listeners, we'll have another podcast in the next couple weeks. And again, thank you for listening to the Passion Project, and thank you, Ian.
Yeah, listen, thanks for having me.
Okay. See ya. Bye.